Okay, well, welcome. John, you're our first hot seat. Congratulations. I'm excited about this. So I think that the place that I'm inspired to start is I just want to hear you speak. Like, where are you at? What's on your heart? What was it that was really led you to be like, okay, Britt, like I want this hot seat. I'm ready. And then we'll just go from there and see where the Holy Spirit leads us in our conversation.
Well, first, I come with really no preconceptions because the hot seat to me means a bunch of different things. In fact, there's a movie that I'm watching right now called Hot Seat, and it's about a programmer who has a bomb under his chair and he can't get up until he does this hacking job for this criminal. So that's his hot seat. And I said, well, no, it can't be that. And I kind of know it means that you are the focus of attention of a group. And if they ask you questions. So again, I come with really that's the only preconceptions I have about it. Now, where I'm at, the reason that I'm taking this course and the reason I got interested in it in the first place was after my mother died, I was there when she took her last breaths. And right before she died, a couple of hours before, she was gone. I mean, she was just no consciousness, nothing. And suddenly, and I've heard it called terminal lucidity, but suddenly she came back like she was 40 years old, and her face had a glow like a Greek god kind of mask, kind of a shining bright gold color, and her voice was booming. And she said, "I love you," and a couple of other things. And then she went back to being just, completely unconscious. And I read about this, and it said that even people who had like brain damage, physical brain damage, go through that. And that led me to understand that whatever is in our brain is different than what's in our consciousness and our mind because somehow the consciousness was able to override that at that time and get that last message out.
Mhm.
And then I just ran into this other person who got me introduced to Disappearing Universe. The minute I heard the title, I went, I know exactly what you're talking about, even though I didn't, but intuitively I knew. And then that kind of went down a rocky road after about a year. But um, I wanted to, as I'm getting older, I just hit 70 about 3 weeks ago. I want to, things are losing their meaning. I mean, like a TV, like I used to be a TV baby and watch movies and all of them. All these things are kind of falling away from me. And it's not, I don't think it's just a function of having been alive for so many decades that you get tired of these things. And so I was looking for something that had more connection to reality, and that's what I was beginning to find in the courses that I took. I mean, the initial lessons that I learned back then, and then kind of got sketchy with it and was here and there. But I got the glimpse of it. But still behind all of this, and this is where the hot seat question comes is I can't get an answer from anybody. I tried this with other people, but nobody that's as dedicated as you are in this particular um, spiritual area, I guess. I mean, you know a lot, you live it, you practice it, you're aware of it. So that's why I asked the question. And all right, let's see if I can explain it this way. All right. If reincarnation is real and people believe in that, I don't know where I stand with that yet. But um, when souls when, when the soul leaves the physical, whatever this is that we've got, and goes back somewhere or just is somewhere. How did all of that? Is it like a big mountain of souls? It's kind of like that Vietnamese poet who wrote that life is like a waterfall, and you're like a little spray that comes off of the waterfall, and when you die, you go back into the big body of water. So he made this. What happens? I mean, is there one um, creator that I used to ask who are God's grandparents, and that used to drive people crazy. It drove me crazy back in the 70s, and finally I had to give up. But if there was nothing before, but there had to be something to create this, and then we all function within this realm of this creator, then does anybody really know what this is? Or are we just living with what we know through the things we can learn through the readings of Christ and other spiritual readings and practice of these lessons? until we can have this experience, which I had, excuse me, with my mother somewhat when I saw that, because I really saw it. I mean, it was like, and I had heard if you're with people who had been with their mother in particular when they died, they said it was a spiritual experience. And I thought, man, it must have been very emotional, but no, it was big time spiritual. And it stuck with me. In fact, I've got her life story on the wall right behind me.
Oh.
It's a huge thing. And she, this is how the words looked. It lit up like in my mind, it looked like this
Oh.
yellow with the black, but I mean, really bright. And I carried this on my phone. I have it everywhere. This picture has it all through it. It's kind of a mosaic, but real. So that's my question. Does anybody know? I mean, what, how did, where, I, I don't know what I'm really getting at with it, except that nobody can really tell me, yeah, there's a big mountain of souls that you go back to. Well, who's in charge of this big mountain of the souls? I mean, somebody has to coordinate all this. Some creator, I mean, we can't as individuals. So that's my question is, because
Mhm.
otherwise all of it just seems to remove one step from real ultimate reality.
Mhm.
There's my
You
big
excites me, and I'll start sharing the reasons in a moment. But would you say, just before I get to answering your question, would you say that this grappling of like, does God have grandparents? Like, are we really just a mass of souls? Like, how do we know? Does anybody really know? Is reincarnation a thing? Like, would you say that these ideas are a block to you in your spiritual journey and that it's like preventing you from kind of perhaps moving forward in the way you want?
Yeah, because it's kind of, yeah, because it's like, yeah, it doesn't seem to have the final answer. It just seems to be like, this could be one. This is a possibility. Rather than no, like I heard ACIM, Jesus had said, this is mandatory. You have to know this. And you can avoid having to repeat your life, which is, I don't know if that's connected with ACIM or not, but if you learn this. So I figured if I'm going to put all this effort into it and really get deadly serious with my ability, lively serious about it,
Be
then,
serious.
um, I need to know if anybody knows. And if they don't, well, then I'll just go ahead and take my chances with it. But it's not so much a block as it's like a swamp. Getting stuck in quicksand and trying to just trudge through it. And I'm like, well, I'll see if this works or not. But maybe what's all right, maybe the Buddha or who knows, because nobody has an answer
Got it.
to this big question. Like, who makes the big mountain of souls? Who's in charge of that?
Yeah.
That's
So much
what,
fun. Yeah. Okay, well, this is so fascinating to me. I think I'm going to dump on you a whole bunch of stories, if that's okay.
mhm,
Because I'm coming at you not from my ideas of what I think. I'm going to be coming at you from my experiences of
mhm,
what I've seen. Okay. So stop me at any time, but there's a lot to this question. Okay. Um, oh my gosh. This brings me back. Okay. So the first place that I want to begin is in my own training, in the work that I do. Before I got to A Course in Miracles, I was trained in hypnotherapy. A part of the training that I received during that time was past life regressions.
mhm,
There was a particular person who was immersed in the same field as me, and so we used each other's practice subjects. And so there was this training that we went through that was called soul regression. So we had these experiences where we trained on each other, where we would lead each other back into the soul realm, like after the body had died, so that we can see in our consciousness what goes on after life.
mhm.
Okay. So I experienced that myself 3 times. Oh my God, this is gonna make me cry. Like this leads into some deep stuff for me, John. And I also facilitated this with other people. So like this, and it wasn't just with this person. I carried this as a therapeutic practice for a good 5 or 6 years before I became a spiritual therapist. So I've seen this work with a lot of people. I've also read lots of books that I can lead you to after. Just remind me to tell you what they are because that will add to this. It's not just me. Um, But my first experiences in the soul regression, the first experience that I had was opening up to the question of like, what am I here for? Like I knew I was here for something. I knew that I had a purpose. So I'm like, okay, let me return to a lifetime that can help me fill in these blank spaces to understand what I'm here for. So the first past life regression that I had, it was an experience where I remember my sister, who's younger in this lifetime, she was older than me in that lifetime. And it was her and I together at the end of life. And I remember that transition moment where I let go and I left this earth and I returned to the soul realm. And my experience when I returned to the soul realm was as if there was a whole bunch of light beams, like little balls of light that were just around. It was almost like this earth was inside like a galactic dome, and I had ascended out of Earth into the dome that surrounded Earth. So it was this feeling of like looking down on the planet going, holy crap, that's where I just came from. What is going on? And I remember looking around and I had a particular guide, like a particular person who was assigned to me to let me know that everything was okay. And I was like, okay, well, what is this? And I had kind of tuned into the energy of like, this is a holding cell, like not a cell as in like bars behind jail, but like you're in this holding room, you're in this holding space that I'm not on earth anymore, but I'm not fully returned to God. I'm a soul on a journey. And so I was connected with my guide, which I felt was like lots of like angelic beings who weren't to come onto earth. They were meant to stay in the soul realm to help us. And it was time to choose another life. And I remember I got to choose my family. I got to choose where I lived. I got to choose my body. I got to choose everything about me in order to make sure that I learned the lessons that I needed to learn. And so that in itself was radical because it's like, wow, like I actually get to choose this for my own soul's growth and evolution. But I did this like 3 more times, had the same experience every time, meeting with this angelic being to help me decide what's going on in my life. And the conclusion of the first, soul regression was that I had in that lifetime, I had found my purpose, but I was not a mom in that lifetime, and I felt like something was missing. And I was like running away from like authority. I was like almost quote unquote like a witch, like they were after me, this idea because I knew the truth and they were trying to suppress it, that energy idea. And then the other soul regression that I saw was where I had the family, but I was so lonely and like I'm so alone and like I didn't have my purpose in that lifetime. And so I remember after those 2 experiences, my conclusion in my head was, oh, wow, this lifetime is going to be the time where I can fulfill my soul's calling, my purpose, and allow it to be fully expressed into fruition. And I'm going to have my family. So I'm not going to have anything lacking in this lifetime. Everything that I saw in those journeys has come true in my life, everything so far. And so that was the beginning of me realizing that this earth is not my home, that my home is beyond time and space. But before I can even fully return home to God, where I never have to come back in as a body into this world, I have lessons in a contract that I'm fulfilling, and I have to complete my contract. And so I'm going to complete that contract if I'm willing to stay in alignment with the universal purpose for me being here instead of me taking the reins myself. Right. So that's how my journey started and why I am where I am today, because I felt like it was my soul confirming to my soul that this is the lifetime, like this is go time. Right. And so I was like, okay, I will surrender into that. And so my perspective of like past life regressions is that 100 million%, yes, there's past life regressions, but more so in the sense that our soul is on a journey and we're going to keep on this journey until we complete our lessons and then we're done. And then we can return like Jesus and he doesn't have to come back in a body. I do not believe he's ever going to come back in a body. He came back in a book. I think that's enough. Right. And so that's what I think the end goal is to have completed it so well that you don't have to come back in form. Um, and then as part of that, part of the energy that was also shown to me is that so there's the earth, there's the holding container outside the earth that's like surrounding the earth. It's all ethereal, like it's all not form. It's all like ideas and thoughts, and everything's communicated almost telepathically. But then I saw that there was this energy that then holds even that in place, and that energy that holds that in place is the love of God. right? So it's the love of God, our loving Father, that we are able to have this experience of earth, of as souls. It's Him that's enabling this to even happen. So it's like He's the glue, right? Like He's the essence, He's the energy that even allows this to happen. And so I've always seen that God is where it starts and God is where it ends. So there's nothing before or after Him. He just is all that it is. And so this cute and adorable question that you have about like, does God have grandparents is just so innocently sweet, but kind of shows how humans project what they believe relationships are onto God, right? Because we obviously have grandparents. So it's like, well, wouldn't God have grandparents? But what we're seeing is that he's the cause. So he's the first, numero uno, first, right? And so, and then we are the effect of the first cause. And so he's the even what analogy could I give that? I don't even know. He's the life that allows us to live and have breath and be, you know? And so whether that's having a body to be able to breathe that life, or whether that's just being the light, like that droplet that he made us to be, like that is all held within his love. And it's all love and it's only love. And like it was made certain for me that hell does not exist. They will just, all souls return to the same etheric realm, and just some had a really difficult life, and you're going to have to go and have another difficult life because you didn't experience your experiences and learn your lessons, bro. So you get sent back to hell on earth to experience your lessons until you wake up, right? But God doesn't hold us in hell. He holds us in love. We are the ones who decide if we're going to learn that love is real or not. And so that's kind of in summary my experiences with it. And there's some teachers named Michael Newton, Newton. He has a whole series of books that are called Soul's Journey. And so he was a past life regressionist like me. And so there's hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of stories of this happening. And so if you're interested in, learning more, I would definitely turn your attention there. But now that I've kind of unfurrowed these experiences in my heart, what's on your mind? What's coming up?
How come, in your experience, have you ever gotten the answer as to why we can't know? Because it's impossible for our mind, I believe, to figure out how there could be, God could have always been there. That It had to come from somewhere, but yet it didn't. So is that just a restriction that's on us, our mind at this point? And
Yeah.
we can't understand that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can give up on the grandparents thing.
Yeah. Well, you can lay that down.
Okay.
And I think it's almost like same with children, right? Like when our children are growing up, there's some things that you just don't express to the children when they're that young because they won't understand it and they won't get it and it'll mess with their head in a bad way. And so I think it's kind of the same with us in this plan, that he just can't unload all of the mysteries of the universe when we're not ready. Like we'll implode. Like we just can't, right? So it comes in time, baby steps when we're ready. Yeah.
So the Soul's Journey is the series of books.
Yep.
Okay. I'll check that out. And if you've got any other, just let me know.
Yep.
But that should give me a start.
Yep.
It sounds like an encyclopedia.
Yep.
Oh, I appreciate the time on the hot seat, so I know where.
There is one more book that's coming to me. I have it as an audiobook. It's called Jesus and the Essenes, Essenes. And I think that will really stretch your belief system in a good way, because it really takes you through a very detailed, researched, scientific approach to past life regressions. And it almost happens so spontaneously that it's a miracle. It's just what's supposed to happen. And you can kind of walk through the practitioner's experience of working with someone who's tuning into the times of Jesus and like what happened around that time and the Essenes and stuff like that. It's really fascinating. And I'm happy to kind of talk more about this with you as you kind of dive into this research and these experiences, because they are out there, like meaning out there.
That's the thing. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've Googled a lot of this and found no answers, of course. I found lots of philosophies and theories. But anyway, I know I want to keep it to the times.
No problem. I feel like I also settled into my heart with you that if we like 30 minutes is okay. I kind of do like 20 to 30 minutes. So I just want to make sure like you feel complete because I know I talked a lot in this, which doesn't always happen. But like, is there any other lingering kind of follow-up questions or thoughts that you wanted to ask or add before we do kind of close out today?
Um, really, because what you've shown me is that in your experience, you've gotten to a point that's kind of the non-physical manifestation of Earth, basically, because you could see Earth, and um, even though you had no eyes and things, but how somehow your soul saw, and that whatever is outside of that, you haven't had experience with, and we somewhere in your experience, you've learned that we're not supposed to. It's just not. It's not going to happen. So, I think you can accept that because the creator created a huge thing here going on, and so I'll just leave it that that's a given that it's a good thing for us to not know.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Even though it's like agitating still, but
Yeah.
a little bit, but a little bit less.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned you trained in hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
I think it's very impossible to hypnotize. They have tried for, like all the fairs and stuff. And then I saw trying to get over one woman one time. I went to go see a hypnotherapist, and I'm just one of these people that just, because I would love to do the thing where you can stretch between two chairs and like stand on my stomach, and I'll, see if that really works. But in any case, I just thought I'd throw that out there since you started with that. For me, that's
Oh,
interesting that it can supersede the physical awareness that we have now.
yeah.
So that's very interesting because it must happen to somehow something.
Well, I'm
Anyway,
going to keep that curiosity in mind because as we continue to go on this journey for the 18 months together, I'm wanting to introduce you all to aspects of hypnotherapy that you can practice on yourself. Like I'm open to even meeting again in a few weeks or whenever it aligns, to see if we could test that. Like I take that as, oh yeah,
well, yeah, and it is a
yeah,
challenge because I guess yeah, anytime I run into somebody who knows it, which I haven't often, but says that you did mention that and you trained in that,
Mhm.
I just can't wonder why I can't be. Am I too current
A
on my
lot of
culture?
that comes
Hyper
back
alert.
to like a fear of letting go, John. Like it, a lot of that is like a fear of letting go because hypnotherapy is actually extremely natural. Like, have you ever had the experience when you're driving on the freeway and you're going from like A to B and all of a sudden you get to B and you're like, how the heck did I get here? Have you ever had that experience?
No.
Okay. Well, you're one of the only people who've ever said no to me with that. So maybe you're onto something when you can't be hypnotized. What if
I really
like, oh,
no, no, no. Oh, no, when I was drinking, of course, I would wake up in
yeah.
all kinds of strange places, but, but no, never have I had that, even going like to a short distance, maybe to school 10 miles away, or a long distance from San Francisco to Reno. Every time I'm always aware, um, and I'd never gotten there going like, gee, that was fast. How did that happen? No.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see if anybody, like, if they, have a chance to like see this with us, if they have, because I know that that's, something that can happen to a lot of people. It's like you're driving, all of a sudden you go, oh my goodness, I've been driving. And then I kind of like blinked out for a second. And it's kind of like the subconscious just takes over. Like it's always running. It's always operating. Like it's what's running our breath. It's what's running our heartbeat. Like it's controlling everything. Right. Um, and like the last that I want to say here, just how important not knowing is for us and to stay in the not knowing. Just think about how much Jesus is saying, like, you don't need to understand these lessons. You do not have to like them. You do not have to agree with them. You do not have to understand them. Understanding is not necessary. You're not supposed to know. So just keep that in mind too. Like if we try to know, we're trying to intellectualize it and think about it. We won't find the answers that way ever.
Right. I have gotten that. It's an experience. And you do
Exactly.
learn the actions and the lessons.
Yes, exactly. So
Eventually that accumulates.
exactly. So it'll be on my heart to add deeper experiences that like meditations and hypnosis practices to help you to get into the energy vibration that's where the healing happens, right? Which is what like getting into the hypnotherapy kind of zone is. So I can bring that into class because it's the most natural thing, honestly. And so I think that can be a help preparatory thing. And then last thing, did you know Jesus has a section on reincarnation in the teacher's manual?
No.
He does. Go check it out. Yeah, go check it out. That'll help you too.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
PayPal again as soon as we disconnect.
Perfect.
And
That works. It should be perfectly fine.
well, thank you very much, Brittany. Great. It's been great. And this is a hot seat. Okay, one too hot.
Just
I
like
mean, it
that.
was great. Yeah, but I didn't feel uncomfortable at all.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah.
Take care.
John, thank you for opening your heart to me and asking the question. You're not alone in that.
All right.
I'll talk to you soon.